How's it going, guys? It's me, Ritchie from the Puppet Geek at mmgn.com, and this is Ritchie's Corner, where I talk about all the gaming news and tech, and really anything what interests me today. Now, before we get up all in this, let's talk about some gaming news. Now, with E3 coming up to a wrap, a lot of things are coming out from media outlets saying, with some DRM issues with the PS4, and with the Xbox, who won E3, a lot of things. Now, I like to put my own point on this. I personally think that Sony won the, E3 conference, and just the way they handled things. Now, not saying they actually have some features which is really interesting also than the Xbox One. Now, before we get into details with this, I would consider myself a Sony fanboy. I've always been a Sony fanboy. I'm not a hardcore Sony fanboy. I just don't prefer the Xbox, cause just because I haven't owned one doesn't mean, I don't like it. I just prefer to have just one console than having two, and that happens to be the PS3, or the PS2, or the PS1, and now the PS4. Now, moving on to who won it, I reckon Sony did. I watched their conference, and I think the way they handle it, the crowd, the audience, they were all up in arms about, when they had all these announcements like, we won't have DRM issues, we're not going to ask you to be online for 24 hours, we're not going to ask you to do this or do that like Xbox did. And the crowd went wild. It was pretty crazy. Now, some of these things it's really funny. They were really careful with their words with Sony, and I think that's why they won E3, because that's the way they handled it. Like, they didn't go out there and told you, you cannot do this on our console, you cannot do this. Like, they didn't say any bad things about the console, even though the console does have some bad features. Now, one of the things in particular is DRM. Now, a lot of people are saying the DRM issue with the Xbox One, or what Microsoft is forcefully putting on their games, is going to be a big issue, because a lot of people hate DRM, which is a huge thing throughout, the gaming world. Now, Sony, however, said we won't put DRM on our games, and our games underlined, meaning, first-party games, we won't put DRM on them. But to third-party games, it's up to the developers if they want to put it on there. So really, it's out of Sony's hands if some of the publishers put DRM on their games, and we can't. That's the thing. We can't, run away from this. If publishers want to do it, they're gonna do it. Whereas Microsoft have taken a step further and says all games are going to be like this. And I'm not saying all publishers have the same view on DRM, but some of them do want, their games. I don't know. It's a really hard sort of discussion to talk about. Put your comments down below, and maybe we can talk about it then. But moving on to something else is also online play with the PS4. People didn't know that you actually now have to pay for PlayStation Plus to play online. Now, PlayStation Plus is actually a really good pass type of thing. You get a lot of games from there, you get a lot of DLC, you get a lot of content with the PlayStation Plus, but now you're actually paying to actually play online, which people didn't know. When I saw that, I was watching it with a few friends, and when they came up with the PlayStation Plus list, it was right at the bottom, it says online play, and then they went on to the next slide. And I was like, did they just announce saying you have to pay for PlayStation Plus? It's like, yeah, I think they did, and not many people caught on it, which is really funny. So, if you're one of the people who bought the PlayStation 3 just so you can play online without paying, unfortunately now you would have to pay, but you do get all the features of PlayStation Plus, which is a bonus, I guess. But again, moving on to the Xbox fanboys and the PlayStation fanboys, I'm sure that's going to be a battle now, because that's what made the PlayStation 3 stand out, that it was free to play online. But at the same time, it had a lot of server issues, so hopefully now all these things can be fixed, with PlayStation Plus being a must-have to play for online games. Now, the Xbox, or the Microsoft conference, I don't know, it seemed they kept digging their own grave on how they handled things. Like, yes, they really made a game, like everything about E3 with Microsoft was just about the games, and that's what they promised, and that's what they delivered. But at the same time, it really left people in the dark with certain issues, with DRM, with, you have to log in at least, you have to log in once online within 24 hours, something like that. And it's really crazy. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know what they're doing. Saying that though, people are still going to buy the Xbox One no matter what you say. It's like, don't buy the Xbox One, don't buy the Xbox One, because they're going to see you doing this, they're going to see you doing this. People are still going to buy it because they buy it for the console itself, they buy it for the exclusive games. It has its issues, but so does everything else, which is a big problem in this world, I think. People jumping to conclusions. We're not too sure what's going to happen. We just have to let it pan out, I guess, once the Xbox One comes out, and then see all the videos of people playing Kinect. I think that's going to be really interesting. Anyways, besides that, moving on to WWDC, which is the Worldwide Developers Conference. Apple held, a couple of days ago, and where they announced iOS 7, which looks amazing. I have it on my phone right now. I would get it, but it's over there. It involves me moving, which I can't. But I can assure you, it's amazing. At first glance, your mind is blown off how they actually redesign the whole phone, basically. The whole phone is redesigned. Not everything works at the moment. One being is still in development. But I think a lot of people are going to love it and hate it, because at the same time, it's hard to get used to. Like, everything is really vibrant. Everything is really transitions. Everything is popping in, popping out. It's pretty crazy, but at the same time, I think it's something that people wanted for a long time. They wanted a change, and that's what Apple gave them. They basically just changed the whole thing. They didn't really give a new phone, they just changed the whole thing. And I think with the iPhone 5S, we're still going to get the same phone design, which people are talking about. But moving on to other stuff they announced was new MacBook Airs, which have up to 12 hours battery life, that's pretty crazy. 12 hours of battery life. I'm actually thinking of getting a MacBook Air, which 11 inch, just for portability, and that goes for 9 hours of battery life. That's crazy, redonkulous crazy. But other than that, they also announced the Mac Pro, which is another thing. Like, I think if some of you guys remember the G4 Cube, I think that's what they're trying to get at, and it just looks amazing. It's one of, I reckon it's really well designed. It's actually quite small compared to the Mac Pro also, but no price announcements, no date released yet. But I think it's going to be hella expensive if, it's going to be more than $3,000 at least. And I'm not too sure. I'm sure a lot of media outlets are going to get them. But if you're looking for something really powerful and really hardcore, maybe just get an iMac, or even build yourself a PC, which I'm thinking of doing also. But other than that, that's it for Rich's Corner. Just a couple of things. Just because, this week has really been, E3, WWDC, nothing much. I mean, there's been other stuff, but not really worth talking about. I'm sure you guys can find all that information around the interwebs. Anyway, guys, now moving on to this whole thing. I broke my collarbone, basically, or my clavicle, riding my bike like so, and I hit my brakes really hard, went right over, landed on my shoulder, and, broke the bone. I know. Pretty stupid, pretty crazy, but I'm pretty limited to what I can do, and I'm going to try to get at least Rich's Corner out every week if I can. But other than that, video is going to be quite slow for the next couple of weeks. Anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. See ya.